Welcome back to Learn English Quickly with Podcast, the podcast that helps you speak English naturally and confidently. I'm your host, Wyatt.
And I'm Maya. Great to have you back. In episode 7, we focused on building confidence for real-life conversations and gave you practical strategies to overcome conversation anxiety.
Today, we're diving into something that really brings English to life: idioms and expressions. These are the colorful phrases that native speakers use every day but can be really confusing for learners.
Exactly. When someone says it's raining cats and dogs, they're not talking about pets falling from the sky. Today, we'll decode these expressions and show you how to use them naturally.
So let's start with the basics. What exactly are idioms and why are they so important?
Idioms are phrases where the meaning isn't obvious from the individual words. They're cultural shortcuts that pack a lot of meaning into a few words. Native speakers use them constantly, often without realizing it.
Right? And that's what makes them tricky. You can know every word in the phrase but still have no idea what it means.
Exactly. For example, if someone says break a leg before your presentation, they're wishing you good luck, not hoping you injure yourself. These expressions are everywhere in English, in movies, books, casual conversations, and even business meetings.
I remember when I was learning French, idioms were the hardest part. They're like inside jokes that everyone knows except you.
That's a perfect way to put it. But here's the good news. Once you start learning them, you'll understand so much more of natural English. Plus, using idioms correctly makes you sound more fluent and culturally aware.
So how many idioms does a learner really need to know?
You don't need to know thousands. Start with the most common ones, maybe 50 to 100 that come up frequently. Quality over quantity. It's better to use a few idioms correctly than to misuse many.
That's reassuring. So where do we begin? What are some essential idioms every learner should know?
Let's start with everyday conversation idioms. Piece of cake means something is easy. Cost an arm and a leg means very expensive. Call it a day means to stop working. These pop up constantly in daily life.
Those are super practical. Can you give us some examples of how to use them naturally?
Sure. Instead of saying the test was easy, try the test was a piece of cake. Instead of this car is very expensive, say this car costs an arm and a leg. But here's the key. Use them in the right context and don't overdo it.
Context is crucial. Speaking of which, are there different types of idioms for different situations?
Absolutely. There are workplace idioms, social idioms, sports idioms that have entered everyday language, and even weather idioms. Each context has its own set of common expressions.
Let's break those down. What are some must-know workplace idioms?
Great workplace idioms include think outside the box, for creative thinking, ball is in your court, meaning it's your turn to act, get the ball rolling to start something, and touch base, meaning to check in with someone.
I use those all the time without thinking. What about social situations?
For social settings, you have break the ice to start a conversation, hit it off when people connect well, catch up to talk after not seeing someone, and hang out for spending casual time together.
Those are essential for making friends. Now I'm curious about sports idioms that have crossed into everyday English.
Sports idioms are huge in English. Drop the ball means to make a mistake, home run is a big success, ballpark figure is a rough estimate, and play hardball means to be tough in negotiations. Even non-sports fans use these.
It's interesting how sports language infiltrates business and daily life. What about expressions related to weather?
Weather idioms are fun. Under the weather means feeling sick. Storm in a teacup is making a big deal of nothing. Ray of sunshine is someone cheerful, and fair weather friend is someone only around in good times.
I love how descriptive these are. But here's a question many learners have. How do you remember all these idioms?
The best way is to learn them in context. Don't just memorize a list. When you encounter an idiom, write down the whole sentence, note the situation, and try to use it yourself within 24 hours. This helps it stick.
So it's about active use, not passive memorization. Any other memory techniques?
Visual association helps a lot. For butterflies in your stomach, actually picture butterflies fluttering around. For spill the beans, imagine beans spilling and secrets tumbling out. The sillier the mental image, the better you'll remember.
That's clever. Now, what about understanding when not to use idioms?
Such an important point. Avoid idioms in formal writing like academic papers or legal documents. Be careful in international business settings where not everyone might understand. And don't use outdated idioms that might confuse people.
Can you give us examples of outdated idioms to avoid?
Sure, phrases like bee's knees or cat's pajamas sound very old fashioned. Groovy is very 1970s. Stick to current expressions unless you're specifically trying to sound retro or humorous.
Good to know. Now, let's talk about regional differences. Do British and American idioms differ a lot?
They definitely do. British speakers might say, Bob's your uncle, meaning, there you go, while Americans would be confused. Americans say Monday morning quarterback for someone who criticizes after the fact, which puzzles Brits who don't know American football.
So, learners need to be aware of their audience. What are some idioms that work in both British and American English?
Universal ones include break the ice, piece of cake, time flies, better late than never, and actions speak louder than words. These are understood across all English-speaking countries.
That's helpful for international communication. Now, what about idioms that are often misused by learners?
Common mistakes include mixing up similar idioms. People say it's not rocket surgery, mixing rocket science and brain surgery, or using idioms too literally, saying I'm going to hit the sack, at inappropriate times just because they're tired.
Those mix-ups can be funny but embarrassing. How can learners avoid these mistakes?
Listen carefully to how native speakers use idioms. Pay attention to the exact wording. Many idioms sound strange if you change even one word. Piece of cake works, but slice of cake doesn't mean the same thing.
Precision matters. Let's give our listeners some practical exercises for learning idioms.
Here's a great exercise. Keep an idiom journal. Every day, write down one new idiom you've heard or read. Include the context, meaning, and create your own example sentence. Review these weekly.
I like that systematic approach. What else?
Try the Idiom of the Week challenge. Choose one idiom every Monday and try to use it naturally at least 5 times throughout the week. This builds familiarity and confidence.
That's manageable and fun. How about for understanding idioms in movies or TV shows?
Watch with subtitles first. When you hear an unfamiliar expression, pause and look it up. Then rewatch the scene to understand the context better. Many streaming services let you replay sections easily.
Technology really helps with language learning. Now let's dive into some specific categories. What about idioms related to money?
Money idioms are everywhere. Break the bank means too expensive. Penny for your thoughts asks what someone's thinking. Cash cow is something that makes lots of money. And tighten your belt means to spend less.
Those come up in daily life constantly. What about food-related idioms?
Food idioms are delicious. Spill the beans means reveal a secret. Butter someone up is to flatter them. Egg on your face means embarrassment. And cherry on top is an extra benefit. Food is such a universal experience that these idioms are very common.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about these. What about idioms using body parts?
Body part idioms are fascinating. Cold feet means nervous about something. All ears means listening carefully. Cost an arm and a leg for expensive. And pull someone's leg means joking with them. Every body part seems to have idioms.
It's amazing how creative these are. Now let's talk about emotions and feelings expressed through idioms.
Emotional idioms are powerful. Over the moon means extremely happy. Down in the dumps is very sad. On cloud 9 is elated. And green with envy is very jealous. These paint vivid pictures of feelings.
Much more colorful than just saying happy or sad. What about idioms for describing people's personalities?
Great topic. Social butterfly for someone very outgoing. Couch potato for lazy person. Early bird for morning person. Night owl for someone who stays up late. And tough cookie for someone strong or resilient.
Those are so descriptive. Now, how can learners practice using these personality idioms naturally?
Try describing your friends and family using these idioms. Write character descriptions for TV show characters using personality idioms. This connects the expressions to real people and situations, making them easier to remember.
Smart way to personalize the learning. Let's talk about business idioms specifically. These are crucial for professional settings.
Essential business idioms include bottom line, for the most important point, win-win situation, where everyone benefits, think on your feet, for quick thinking, and go the extra mile, for doing more than required.
Those are must-knowing for the workplace. Can you give examples of how to use them professionally?
Sure, in a meeting, the bottom line is we need to increase sales. In negotiations, let's find a win-win situation here. For problem solving, we need someone who can think on their feet. These sound natural and professional.
Perfect for impressing in job interviews. Speaking of which, what idioms should learners avoid in professional settings?
Avoid overly casual ones like piece of cake in formal presentations. Stay away from negative idioms like beating a dead horse, which sounds harsh. And definitely avoid any idioms with questionable origins or that might offend.
Good boundaries to know. Now, let's explore how idioms can vary in intensity. Some are mild, others are strong.
Exactly! It's raining is literal, it's pouring is heavier, it's raining cats and dogs is extreme. Similarly, I'm tired versus I'm beat versus I'm dead on my feet. Understanding intensity helps you choose the right expression.
So it's like having different volume levels for your expressions. How do learners develop this sense of intensity?
Pay attention to reactions. If you say, I'm starving, and people look concerned, you might be using too strong an expression for being a little hungry. Native speakers often use kind of or pretty to soften idioms. I'm kind of swamped instead of I'm swamped.
Those softeners are important for sounding natural. Let's talk about how to respond when someone uses an idiom you don't understand.
Never pretend you understand if you don't. Say something like, I'm not familiar with that expression. What does it mean? Or, is that an idiom? I'm still learning those. Most people are happy to explain.
That turns a potentially embarrassing moment into a learning opportunity. What about when you want to use an idiom but aren't sure if it's appropriate?
You can test the waters by saying, is this the right expression? Idiom? Or, I think the saying is, this shows you're learning and gives others a chance to help if you're slightly off.
Great strategy for safe practice. Now let's look at idioms in different forms of communication. How do they work in emails versus conversation?
In emails, use idioms sparingly and stick to professional ones. Touch base, keep me in the loop, and on the same page, work well. In casual conversation, you can be more playful with expressions.
What about texting and social media?
Texting often shortens idioms or makes them more casual. LOL replaced laughing out loud. FOMO represents fear of missing out. Social media creates new expressions constantly, so stay current but don't chase every trend.
The digital age really changes how we use language. Now, let's give our listeners some advanced strategies for mastering idioms.
Advanced Strategy 1. Learn idiom families. Many idioms share themes. Learn all the ball idioms together. Drop the ball. Balls in your court. Whole new ball game. This creates mental connections.
That's efficient learning. What's another advanced technique?
Study idiom origins when possible. Knowing that bite the bullet comes from soldiers biting bullets during surgery without anesthesia helps you remember its meaning of facing something difficult bravely.
Etymology makes them stick. Any other advanced tips?
Practice idiom transformations. Take a simple sentence and express it using an idiom. Let's start becomes, let's get the ball rolling. He's angry becomes, he's seeing red. This builds flexibility in your expression.
That's like linguistic gymnastics. What about creating context for practice?
Write short stories using multiple idioms, but make them sound natural. Or play idiom charades with friends. Act out idioms for others to guess. This makes learning memorable and fun.
Those sound like entertaining ways to practice. Now let's talk about common idiom mistakes that even advanced learners make.
One big mistake is overusing idioms to sound more native. Using 5 idioms in one paragraph sounds unnatural. Another is using idioms from the wrong register. Very formal idioms in casual chat, or vice versa.
It's about balance and appropriateness. What about cultural sensitivity with idioms?
Some idioms might be offensive without you realizing it. Research origins if unsure. Avoid idioms referencing violence in professional settings. Be aware that some expressions might have different connotations in different cultures.
Important considerations. Let's look at how idioms evolve. English is always changing, right?
Absolutely. New idioms emerge from technology, pop culture, and social movements. Ghost someone for suddenly cutting contact came from dating apps. Go viral obviously comes from internet culture. Stay curious about new expressions.
Language is alive and growing. How can learners stay current with new idioms?
Follow English social media accounts. Read current blogs and news sites. Watch recent shows and movies. But remember, very new idioms might not be understood by everyone, so use them carefully.
Good balance between being current and being understood. Now let's practice with some role-play scenarios using idioms.
Great idea! Scenario 1. You're at work and your colleague asks about the new project. You could say, "It's been challenging, but I think we're finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. Once we iron out a few wrinkles, it'll be smooth sailing."
Perfect use of multiple idioms naturally. Let me try one. You're explaining why you're late to a friend. Sorry I'm late. I hit every red light, then got stuck behind someone driving at a snail's pace. To top it off, I couldn't find parking to save my life.
Excellent. Those idioms flow naturally and paint a vivid picture. Let's do one more, describing a difficult decision. I'm really on the fence about this job offer. On one hand, the pay is great, but on the other hand, it means burning bridges at my current company.
These examples show how idioms make stories more engaging. Now let's create a challenge system for our listeners.
Challenge Level 1. Learn 5 new idioms this week and use each one in a real conversation. Write down the context and reaction. This builds basic confidence.
What's level 2?
Level 2. Have a 5-minute conversation trying to naturally include 3 idioms. Record yourself if possible. This practices natural integration without sounding forced.
And for advanced learners?
Advanced Challenge. Write a 1-page story or email using at least 10 idioms appropriately. Share it with a native speaker for feedback, or try explaining your country's idioms to English speakers. This deepens understanding of how idioms work.
Those progressively build skills. Any final tips for mastering idioms?
Remember that even native speakers don't know every idiom. Focus on understanding context clues. You can often guess meanings from situations, and enjoy the creativity of language. Idioms show how playful and imaginative English can be.
That's encouraging. Before we wrap up, let's share some resources for continued learning.
Great online resources include idiom dictionaries, YouTube channels explaining expressions, and apps specifically for learning idioms. Books of idioms with illustrations can help visual learners. And of course, consuming authentic English media is invaluable.
Perfect. So, to recap, start with common idioms, learn them in context, practice regularly, pay attention to appropriateness, and have fun with the colorful world of English expressions.
Exactly. And remember, using just a few idioms correctly is better than misusing many. Quality over quantity, always.
Well, that's all for episode 8. We've really opened a can of worms with idioms today. See what I did there? In our next episode, we'll explore advanced grammar tips that will take your English to the next level.
Until then, don't let learning idioms drive you up the wall. Take it one step at a time, and before you know it, you'll be using them like a native speaker. Keep practicing, stay curious, and enjoy the journey.
Thanks for joining us on Learn English Quickly. Remember, when it comes to learning idioms, practice makes perfect.
That's right. And we're always here to help you on this journey. See you in episode 9. Break a leg with your idiom practice.